Hello and welcome. In the last video about the T-54-55, we talked a little bit about the production history and specifications. Now, in this video, I found something about the tank that was quite shocking to me, but eventually I found out that it used to be pretty normal for tanks in the Cold War era, maybe even today. What I'm talking about has to do with the ergonomics inside the tank. As you may know, there are some tanks which could serve as a mansion because there's so much space in there. And then there are tanks in which you can barely even move. In today's video, we're gonna take a look at the ergonomics of the T-54-55. So let's get into it. Now, firstly, a lot of people think that smaller tanks are more cramped than larger ones, but this simply is not true, and the T-54-55 is a prime example for that. The main parameter is volumetric efficiency, in which the T-54 is rated highly. The total internal volume of the tank is 11.4 cubic meters, 8.05 of which form the fighting compartment. The rest forms the engine compartment. This means 71.25% of the total volume within the tank is reserved for the crew, which compared to Western tanks from that time, such as the M47, the M48 and the M60A1, is a lot higher. Now, of course, the total volume of the T-54 is definitely smaller, since Soviet and Russian tanks tend to be lower profile and smaller compared to Western tanks in order to be harder to spot and hit. Here's a height comparison of the T-54 and the M60. So even though the numbers sound better for the T-54, the actual room inside is very small because the tank overall is very small. Fun fact, the Chinese version of the T-54, the Type 59, is even smaller than the T-54. So I guess the Type 59's crew consists of little Chinese midgets or something, but that's besides the point. By the way, no offense to any short Chinese people watching this. Now, ideally, the T-54 should have been a little bit bigger, but the low profile was of big advantage for the Soviets because the tank was very hard to spot and to hit, especially when moving. On longer distances, combined with the poor range-finding capabilities of tanks back in the day, it had massive impact on the tank's survivability. Now, let's talk about the furniture inside the tank, if you can call it as such. In the T-54 and the T-55, everyone in the turret, mainly the commander and the gunner, had their seats suspended from the turret ring. This also meant that the crew had to turn with the turret when traversing. The probably worst thing about the seats were that they didn't have any backrests. Beginning with the T-55, the gunner received a backrest. It was mounted to the seat cushion with a pole, and it could be removed if the gunner moved from the commander's hatch to his station. One disadvantage of the backrest was that it often hindered the gunner from exiting quickly, which in combat situations could cost his life. So many times the gunner chose discomfort over potentially dying and removed the backseat. The T-54's turret is slightly wider than the turret of an M46 or an M47. A comparison between those tanks makes sense because they're the T-54's closest counterparts, and amongst them, the T-54 has the most internal space available to the crew. Now, I already told you about the advantages of the tank's low profile, and it comes in handy in many situations for the crew, but one person this definitely doesn't come in handy for is the loader. The loader can't really sit in the tank as there's not a lot of space for him to do so, but he can't stand either. The maximum internal height is only 1.6 meters or 5'2", which may be enough for a midget, but most likely not for a full-grown man, unless he's extremely short. But it's not just the loader. 1.6 meters is not really enough for any crew member to stand upright unless you are very short. Now I understand why having child soldiers can be helpful in many ways. Just kidding. But that's besides the point. Anyways, this was all I had to say about the internal space of the T-54-55. I hope you enjoyed it. If you think I said anything that is not right, or you think I should have added any additional information to this video, please let me know in the comments and share your knowledge. Besides that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
We've been hit. We hit. Target destroyed.